You're sitting in your living room on a quiet Sunday morning, enjoying your coffee, when crash! A red Mustang comes tearing through your front fence like it's made of paper. You rush outside expecting an apology. Maybe insurance information, right? Wrong. The kid behind the wheel, couldn't be older than 19, climbs out, looks at the destruction, and says, "Your fence shouldn't have been there. My mom's gonna sue you for damaging my car." And who's his mom? Kate Owens, president of our homeowners association and the most entitled person I've ever met. What happened next will blow your mind. But stick around because justice was served colder than a frozen dinner. Before we dive in, let me know where you're watching from today. My name's Peter Jack, and I've lived in Maple Ridge Estates for 8 years. It's one of those cookie-cutter suburban neighborhoods where every house looks identical, and the HOA rules are thicker than a phone book. I'd managed to stay under the radar, pay my dues, and avoid drama, until that Sunday morning in March changed everything. I was reviewing some client files when the sound of splintering wood and twisted metal made me nearly jump out of my skin. Through my front window, I saw a red 2019 Mustang GT had plowed straight through my white picket fence, taking out about 15 feet of it and coming to rest half on my lawn, half on the sidewalk. Steam was rising from the hood, and my beautiful fence, the one I'd spent 3 weekends painting last summer, looked like a tornado had hit it. I ran outside in my slippers and bathrobe, genuinely concerned someone might be hurt. The driver's door swung open, and out stepped this kid who couldn't have been more than 19, wearing designer jeans and a smirk that immediately rubbed me the wrong way. He had that entitled look, you know the type, like the world owed him something. "Hey man, you okay?" I called out, still thinking this was going to be a normal interaction between decent human beings. The kid looked at me, then at his car, then at my destroyed fence, and said the words that still make my blood boil. "Yeah, I'm fine. But look what your fence did to my car. There's scratches all over the front bumper. My mom's Kate Owens. She runs this whole neighborhood. She's going to be pissed when she finds out your fence was sticking out too far into the street." I stood there for a moment, processing what I'd just heard. "Excuse me, my fence did what to your car? You just drove through my property and destroyed 15 feet of fencing?" The kid, I later learned his name was Tyler, rolled his eyes like I was being unreasonable. "Look, old man, that fence was clearly over the property line. It's probably been a code violation for years. My mom's been trying to clean up this neighborhood, get rid of all the eyesores. You should be thanking me for pointing out the problem." That's when I noticed he was on his phone, and I could hear him talking to someone. "Yeah, Mom, it's me. That fence on Elm Street, you know, the white one you said was probably illegal? Well, I accidentally hit it with my car. The owner's being a real jerk about it too, acting like it's my fault." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This kid had just destroyed my property and was somehow spinning it like I was the villain. But I kept my cool. 8 years of dealing with difficult clients in my consulting business had taught me patience. "Son," I said calmly, "I'm going to need your insurance information, and we should probably call the police to file an accident report." Tyler laughed. Actually laughed. "Insurance? Dude, this is your problem. That fence was illegally placed, and now it's damaged my car. If anything, you should be calling your insurance to cover my repairs." Before I could respond, a white Mercedes SUV came screeching around the corner and pulled up behind the Mustang. Out stepped Kate Owens, and if you've never seen a 5'4" woman carry herself like she owns the entire world, you've never met Kate. She was wearing one of those expensive jogging outfits that costs more than most people's rent. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a perfect ponytail, and her face had that pinched expression she wore to every HOA meeting. "Tyler, honey, are you hurt?" she called out, rushing to her son, without even glancing at me or the destruction. "I'm fine, Mom. But look what this guy's fence did to my car." Tyler pointed at his Mustang like it was the victim in all this. Kate finally looked at the scene, taking in the demolished fence, the tire tracks across my lawn, and her son's car sitting in the middle of it all. Then she looked at me with the kind of disdain usually reserved for something you'd scrape off your shoe. "Mr. Jack, isn't it?" she said, consulting her phone. "Yes, I have you in my files. Lot 47, Elm Street. I've been meaning to send you a violation notice about this fence. It's clearly not up to HOA standards, and I suspect it's been encroaching on community property." I felt my jaw drop. "Mrs. Owens, your son just crashed through my fence. We need to handle this through insurance and—" "No," she cut me off, holding up one perfectly manicured hand. "What we need to do is get this eyesore cleaned up and discuss your liability for damaging Tyler's vehicle. That fence has been a problem for months. The HOA board has been discussing it." That was news to me. I'd never received any violation notices, and my fence had been approved by the previous HOA board when I'd installed it 5 years ago. I still had the paperwork. "I have all the original permits and approvals," I said. "This fence was installed to code, and it's been here for 5 years without any issues." Kate waved dismissively. "Previous boards made a lot of mistakes. We're correcting them now. Tyler, call the police and explain what happened. Make sure they understand that this gentleman's illegal fence caused an accident." And that's exactly what happened next. When Officer Martinez arrived 20 minutes later, Tyler spun this elaborate story about how he'd been driving carefully down Elm Street when my illegally positioned fence had somehow jumped out and attacked his car. He claimed he'd swerved to avoid a dog, and that my fence, which stuck out too far into the roadway, had caught his bumper and caused him to lose control. Officer Martinez looked skeptical, especially when he measured the fence and confirmed it was well within my property lines. But Kate was there backing up her son's story, pulling out her phone to show documentation of previous violations in the neighborhood, painting herself as a concerned citizen trying to keep everyone safe. "Officer," she said in that sweet, fake voice she used when she wanted something, "as HOA president, I've been tracking code violations in this neighborhood for months. Mr. Jack's fence has been reported multiple times by concerned neighbors. This accident was inevitable." I tried to explain what had actually happened, but Kate kept interrupting, and Tyler was nodding along to every lie his mother told. They had me outnumbered, and for a moment, I actually worried the officer might buy their version of events. That's when I remembered something that was going to change everything. But I'll tell you about that in a minute. First, you need to understand just how deep Kate's corruption ran, and how this fence incident was just the tip of the iceberg. After Officer Martinez left, without filing any charges but promising to review the evidence, Kate and Tyler drove away, leaving me standing in my front yard, staring at the destruction. The fence was completely destroyed, my lawn was torn up, and I was out several $1,000s in damages. But more than that, I was furious at the blatant lies they'd told and how confidently they'd done it. That's when something clicked. I remembered that 6 months ago, I'd installed a new security camera system. Not just one camera, 4 high-definition cameras with night vision that covered my entire front and side yards. I'd installed them after a series of package thefts in the neighborhood, and they'd been recording everything 24/7 ever since. I rushed inside and pulled up the footage on my computer. What I saw was even worse than I'd thought. The video showed Tyler's Mustang speeding down Elm Street, and I mean speeding. The timestamp showed he was going at least 40 miles per hour in a 25 zone. There was no dog, no swerving, no attempt to brake. He had been texting on his phone and looking down when he hit my fence straight on. But that wasn't the most damning part. The audio was crystal clear, and I could hear Tyler's actual words after the crash. "Oh shit, Mom's gonna kill me. I was going way too fast." Then he'd made a phone call, and I heard him say, "Mom, I messed up. I crashed into that fence you hate on Elm Street. Can you help me spin this?" I had everything. Video evidence of reckless driving, audio of Tyler admitting fault, and clear proof that they'd conspired to lie to the police. But as I sat there watching the footage, something else caught my attention. In the background of the video, I could see Kate's Mercedes parked at the end of the street. She'd been there for almost 10 minutes before Tyler crashed, just sitting there, watching. That seemed odd, so I pulled up the previous week's footage and started looking for patterns. What I found made my blood run cold. Kate had been driving through the neighborhood multiple times a day, always slowing down in front of certain houses, taking pictures with her phone. She'd done this in front of my house at least 6 times in the past month, always focusing on my fence. I decided to dig deeper. As a business consultant, I knew how to research. And I'd learned over the years that when someone acts this boldly corrupt, it's usually not their first time. I started by checking the county records for HOA violations and fines issued over the past 2 years since Kate had become president. What I found was staggering. Under the previous board, the HOA issued an average of 12 violation notices per year, mostly for serious issues like uncut lawns or broken mailboxes. Under Kate's leadership, that number had jumped to over 200 violations per year. She was issuing fines for everything from unapproved flower colors to excessive holiday decorations to non-regulation mailbox fonts. But here's where it got really interesting. I cross-referenced the violation addresses with county voting records from the last HOA board election. Kate had issued violations to 67 homeowners in our neighborhood. 64 of them had voted against her in the election. The 3 who'd voted for her, 0 violations, ever. Then I started looking at the money trail. HOA violation fines in our neighborhood ranged from $50 for minor infractions to $500 for major violations. In the 2 years since Kate took over, she'd collected over $43,000 in violation fines. According to our HOA bylaws, this money was supposed to go into a community improvement fund for things like playground maintenance and landscaping. I requested the financial records from our HOA management company. As a homeowner, I had that right. What came back showed that the Community Improvement Fund had a balance of exactly $67. Where had the other $42,000 gone? That's when I called my neighbor, Jim Rodriguez, who lived 3 houses down, and had been complaining about Kate for months. Jim was a retired accountant, and when I showed him the financial records, his eyes lit up. "Peter, this is embezzlement, plain and simple," he said, spreading the documents across my kitchen table. "Look here. She's been writing checks to Neighborhood Enhancement Services for everything from tree trimming to mailbox painting. But I drive a truck for a living, and I've never seen any service vehicles in this neighborhood. These are shell companies." Jim helped me trace the company names, and sure enough, Neighborhood Enhancement Services was registered to Kate's husband's business address. Premium Landscaping Solutions used her daughter's name as the contact. Community Safety Consulting listed Tyler as the owner. She'd been funneling tens of thousands of dollars in HOA funds to fake companies run by her family members. The scale of the fraud was breathtaking, but Jim found something even more damning. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a series of checks from January. "She's been paying herself a management fee of $800 per month. Our HOA bylaws specifically state that board positions are voluntary and unpaid." I was looking at clear evidence of systematic fraud, abuse of power, and now I had proof that she'd been planning to target my fence for weeks. But I needed more than just financial records. I needed witnesses, and I needed to understand how deep this corruption went. I spent the next 3 days knocking on doors and talking to neighbors. What I discovered was that Kate had been terrorizing our entire community for 2 years. Mrs. Chen on Maple Street had been fined $300 for excessive garden ornaments. She had 4 small ceramic rabbits in her flower bed. The Martinez family on Oak Drive had been hit with repeated violations for their children's chalk art on their own driveway. Even elderly Mr. Patterson had been fined for using a walking aid that Kate claimed was aesthetically inconsistent with neighborhood standards. But the worst case was Sarah Williams, a single mother who lived on Pine Street. Kate had been targeting her ruthlessly, issuing violations for everything from her child's bicycle being visible in the driveway to her unapproved window blinds. Sarah showed me a stack of violation notices that would have cost her over $2,000 in fines, money she clearly didn't have. "I was going to move," Sarah told me, tears in her eyes. "I can't afford to keep fighting her, and I can't afford to pay all these fines. She's making my life hell, and I don't know why." I looked at Sarah's voting records. She'd been one of Kate's most vocal opponents during the last election, even giving a speech at the community meeting about the need for more reasonable HOA leadership. By Thursday, I had enough evidence to bury Kate's entire operation. Financial fraud, selective enforcement, abuse of power, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. The list went on. but I wanted to catch her in the act one more time, and I had the perfect plan. I called the police department and asked to speak with Officer Martinez. When I told him I had video evidence from the crash, he agreed to meet me the next morning. But I also had something else planned, something that would expose Kate's operation in front of the entire neighborhood. Friday morning, I called Kate's office and left a message saying I wanted to discuss settling the fence incident quietly, and that I might be willing to pay for Tyler's car repairs if we could work something out. I made myself sound defeated, like I was ready to give up. Within an hour, she called me back. "Mr. Jack, I'm so glad you're finally being reasonable about this," she said in that condescending tone I'd grown to hate. "Tyler's been very upset about the damage to his vehicle, and frankly, we were prepared to pursue legal action." "I understand," I said, trying to sound resigned. "I just want this to go away. Could we meet this afternoon to discuss terms?" "Of course. Why don't you come to my house around 3 o'clock? We can handle this like civilized adults." Kate's house was the biggest one in the neighborhood, a massive colonial with a circular driveway and perfectly manicured landscaping. As I walked up to her front door, I made sure my phone was recording everything. I'd also sent copies of all my evidence to Jim Rodriguez with instructions to call the police if he didn't hear from me by 5 o'clock. Kate answered the door wearing a silk blouse and pearls, like she was dressed for a business meeting. She led me into her living room, which was decorated with expensive furniture and family photos showing her, her husband, and Tyler on various luxury vacations. "Can I offer you some coffee?" she asked, playing the gracious hostess. "That would be nice, thank you." As she went to get the coffee, I noticed something interesting on her desk, a stack of violation notices, already filled out and ready to mail. I couldn't read the addresses, but I could see they were dated for next week. She was planning her next wave of attacks. When she returned with the coffee, Kate sat across from me and smiled that fake smile I'd seen so many times at HOA meetings. "Now, Peter, may I call you Peter? Let's talk about how we're going to resolve this unfortunate situation. Tyler's car suffered approximately $4,000 in damage. Plus, there's the emotional distress he's experienced. I think $6,000 would be a fair settlement." I nearly choked on my coffee. $6,000? For what? "For the damage your fence caused to his vehicle, plus compensation for the trauma. Tyler's been having nightmares about the accident." "Mrs. Owens, your son drove through my fence. I'm the victim here." Kate's fake smile disappeared, replaced by that cold look I'd seen before. "Peter, let me explain something to you. I run this neighborhood. I decide what's acceptable and what isn't. Your fence has been a problem for months, and now it's caused an accident. You can pay the $6,000, or I can make your life very difficult." "How exactly would you do that?" Kate leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "HOA violations, Peter, lots of them. Your lawn is half an inch too long in the back corner. Your mailbox has a small rust spot that violates our maintenance standards. The paint on your garage door is slightly faded compared to your house. Your garden hose is visible from the street, which violates our storage regulations. I could write you up for dozens of violations." She was enjoying this, feeding off my apparent helplessness. This was clearly how she operated. Intimidation through bureaucratic abuse. "And if I refuse to pay those fines, then I place a lien on your house. Keep refusing, and eventually we can force a sale to recover the debt. I've done it before, Peter. The Patterson family on Birch Street learned this lesson the hard way." That was news to me. The Patterson house had sold suddenly 6 months ago, well below market value. I'd wondered why. "How many families have you done this to?" Kate smiled again, but this time it was predatory. "Enough to clean up this neighborhood and teach people that rules matter. The Williams woman is next. She owes me over $2,000 in fines. Her house will be on the market by Christmas." I couldn't believe she was admitting to this so openly, but her arrogance had clearly gotten the better of her. She thought she had me cornered, that I was just another victim who would pay up and stay quiet. "What about the HOA funds?" I asked. "All those fines you've been collecting? Where does that money go?" Kate's expression shifted slightly, like she was trying to decide how much to reveal. "The money goes exactly where it's supposed to go, into neighborhood improvements. My family's companies provide excellent services at competitive rates." "Your family's companies?" My husband runs neighborhood enhancement services. My daughter handles premium landscaping. Tyler owns community safety consulting. We keep the work in the family to ensure quality control. She was admitting to everything. The fraudulent companies, the nepotism, the embezzlement. I couldn't have asked for a better confession. And the management fees you've been paying yourself? Kate waved dismissively. A small compensation for the enormous amount of work I do keeping this community pristine. $800 a month is nothing compared to what a professional management company would charge. At this point, she was so confident in her power that she was confessing to multiple felonies like she was discussing the weather. But I needed one more piece of the puzzle. Kate, can I ask you something? How did you know Tyler would crash into my fence? I mean, you were parked at the end of my street watching when it happened. For the first time, Kate looked genuinely surprised. How did you? Never mind, fine. Yes, I was there. I'd been documenting your fence violations for weeks, trying to build a case. When Tyler called me that morning saying he was coming over, I told him to drive past your house and take some pictures of the fence for my files. I never expected him to crash into it. But once he did, you saw an opportunity. Kate's smile returned. I saw a solution to a problem. Your fence needed to come down anyway. Tyler's accident just provided the perfect excuse. And you coached him to lie to the police. I coached him to present the facts in a way that protected his interests. That's what good parents do. I had everything I needed. Kate had just confessed to conspiracy, fraud, embezzlement, coaching her son to file a false police report, and systematic abuse of power. But the best part was still coming. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Jim Rodriguez. It's done. They're on their way. Kate, I said, standing up. There's something I need to tell you. I've been recording this entire conversation. I also have video footage of Tyler's crash that shows he was speeding and texting while driving. And I've been investigating your financial records for the past week. Kate's face went white. You can't record me without consent. This is my house. Actually, in this state, only one party needs to consent to recording. That would be me. And you just confessed to multiple felonies. I pulled out my phone and showed her the recording app, which had been running for the past 30 minutes. Her confession was all there, crystal clear. You're bluffing, she said, but her voice was shaking now. Am I? Jim Rodriguez has been helping me trace your fake companies. Sarah Williams has been documenting every violation you've issued to her. Officer Martinez is reviewing the crash footage as we speak. And the State Attorney General's office has been very interested in HOA fraud cases lately. Kate stood up abruptly, knocking over her coffee cup. Get out of my house. Get out. I'm leaving, I said calmly. But you should know that copies of all this evidence have been sent to the police, the district attorney's office, and every homeowner in this neighborhood. Your reign of terror is over, Kate. As I walked to the door, I could hear her screaming behind me. Something about lawyers and lawsuits and how she'd destroy me. But her threats sounded hollow now, desperate. I was halfway down her driveway when the police cars arrived. 3 police cars pulled up to Kate's house as I was walking to my car. Officer Martinez was in the lead vehicle, and he nodded to me as they approached the front door. I could hear Kate screaming from inside about harassment and illegal recordings, but her voice was getting more hysterical by the minute. I drove home and waited. Within 2 hours, my phone started ringing. First, it was Jim Rodriguez. Peter, you did it. They just arrested Kate for embezzlement and fraud. Tyler got charged with reckless driving and filing a false police report. The whole neighborhood is buzzing. The news spread faster than wildfire. By evening, my doorbell was ringing constantly with neighbors wanting to thank me. Mrs. Chen brought me homemade cookies. The Martinez family invited me to dinner. Even elderly Mr. Patterson, who rarely left his house anymore, walked over to shake my hand. But the most meaningful visit was from Sarah Williams. She arrived around 7 o'clock with her 8-year-old daughter Emma. Mr. Jack, she said, tears streaming down her face, I don't know how to thank you. When I heard what happened to Kate, I felt like I could breathe for the first time in 2 years. Little Emma tugged on my sleeve. Mr. Jack, my mommy says the mean lady can't make us move away now. Is that true? That's absolutely true, sweetheart. The mean lady is gone, and she's never coming back. Over the next few days, The full extent of Kate's crimes became clear. The district attorney's office found evidence of embezzling over $60,000 in HOA funds. She'd issued fraudulent violations to 83 homeowners, collecting over $43,000 in illegal fines. The fake companies she'd created with her family members had been operating for 2 years without providing any actual services. Tyler was facing charges for reckless driving, property damage, and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. His driver's license was suspended, and his precious Mustang was impounded as evidence. The insurance investigation revealed he'd been in 3 previous accidents, all due to distracted driving. Kate's husband was charged as an accessory to fraud for his role in the fake companies. Their daughter faced similar charges. The whole family's financial empire came crashing down when investigators froze their assets pending the criminal investigation. But the best part came 2 weeks later at the emergency HOA meeting. The community had gathered to elect a new board and discuss how to move forward. Jim Rodriguez agreed to serve as interim president until proper elections could be held. First order of business, Jim announced, is reversing all of Kate Owen's fraudulent violation notices and refunding every penny of illegal fines collected during her tenure. The room erupted in cheers. Sarah Williams actually started crying with relief. Second, Jim continued, we're implementing new transparency measures to ensure this never happens again. All board meetings will be recorded, all financial records will be available for public inspection, and no board member can issue violations without approval from at least 2 other board members. The changes were unanimously approved. For the first time in 2 years, our neighborhood actually felt like a community again. 3 months later, Kate was sentenced to 4 years in prison for embezzlement and fraud. Tyler got 6 months in jail, plus 2 years of probation. The restitution order required them to pay back every dollar they'd stolen, plus damages to the victims of their schemes. My fence was rebuilt, with insurance money from Tyler's policy, plus punitive damages for my pain and suffering. I used the extra money to install even better security cameras and a beautiful garden where the old fence used to be. But the real victory was watching our neighborhood transform. Kids started playing in their front yards again without fear of violation notices. People put up holiday decorations without checking the HOA rules. Mrs. Chen expanded her garden and added 6 more ceramic rabbits, just because she could. Sarah Williams decided to run for the HOA board in the next election. She won by a landslide, campaigning on a platform of reasonable rules and community respect. Her first official act was to establish a neighborhood watch program, not to spy on violations, but to look out for each other's safety and well-being. The whole experience taught me something important about bullies. Kate had built her power on the assumption that people would stay isolated and afraid, that they wouldn't fight back or support each other. But once we started working together, sharing information, and standing up to her corruption, her entire empire collapsed like a house of cards. Sometimes the system works exactly as it should. Kate thought she could intimidate me into paying for her son's mistakes and crimes. She thought her position as HOA president made her untouchable. She thought wrong. Justice isn't always swift, but when it comes, it's beautiful to watch. The last I heard, Kate was appealing her conviction from prison while working in the laundry facility for 37 cents an hour. Tyler was living with his grandmother and working at a fast food restaurant to pay his court-ordered restitution. Their mansion went into foreclosure, and a lovely young family with 3 kids bought it at auction for half its original price. Our neighborhood is thriving now. Property values have actually increased since Kate's reign of terror ended, and we've had more community events in the past year than we had in the previous 5 combined. Kids ride their bikes freely, neighbors help each other with yard work, and our HOA meetings are actually pleasant experiences focused on genuine community improvement. As for me, I kept my security cameras, expanded my garden, and got elected to the HOA board myself. My platform was simple: transparency, fairness, and respect for everyone's property rights. I won with 97% of the vote. Sometimes people ask me if I feel bad about what happened to Kate and her family. The answer is simple. I feel bad that it took so long for justice to catch up with them. How many families did they terrorize before I finally stood up? How much money did they steal? How many people were driven from their homes by their schemes? I don't feel guilty about exposing criminals. I feel proud that our community came together to stop them. They thought they'd broken me. They were wrong. Follow to see what they try next.